South Africans are worried that police are fighting a losing battle with criminals. This as violent crimes are increasingly dominating the headlines. In recent days, there have been numerous reports of mass shootings that have killed several people at a time, and concern is mounting over the proliferation of illegal guns. I'm now joined by Adele, Kirsten, Gun-Free South Africa founding member. Adele, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Hardly a week passes by without us reporting on some massive shooting that involves several people, and you look at the guns that then get found or discovered afterwards. These are proper rifles. We're not talking about 9mm pistols anymore.
Buyo, good afternoon. Yes, it's a really worrying pattern. I mean, we first started noticing these kinds of shootings in 2022, in July, at the Soweto tavern shooting, where, over 20 people were shot, 16 of whom were killed. Over the last 3 months, 100 people have been killed in mass shootings. And in the last 2 days, we've just added another 10 victims to that. So this is a crisis for the country, but it's a priority for SAPS to address this problem. And we know that with the easy availability of guns, the easy availability of ammunition, that we cannot tell when the next mass shooting is going to be. But we know that it's much more likely to happen with this easy availability of guns.
Well, I've seen, social media posts of people looking like, I saw a couple this week, a couple of guys approach a security guard and they rob them of their gun. But is that what actually happens, or are there bigger operations by criminals out there to obtain guns? In other words, where are these guns coming from?
Yeah. So loss and theft from police, as well as from private security, is definitely one of the sources of these illegal guns. But just to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture, basically most illegal guns were once legal. We have the illegal manufacturing industry, which is quite small, plus cross-border trade. Those would be two sources of guns which are coming from within the illicit market already, from within the criminal market. But the bulk of the guns in South Africa come from legal sources. And that's from the state, from official institutions, from the military, the police, and then also from civilians, and of course the private security industry. And so your biggest source is loss and theft from these institutions and individuals that I've spoken about. And then there's also fairly significant fraud and corruption, whether it's through dealers, through the Central Firearms Registry, where there's a fraudulent issuing of licenses. We're looking at something like, on average, 24 guns lost and stolen from the legal market and leaking into the criminal market. But organized crime is playing a key role in increasing the demand for these guns. But when you look at the kind of guns that are being recovered, and this is a key task for our police, you can immediately know if there's an R5, it's most likely police issue. If it's a handgun, it could come from a number of sources. But your R1s, your R4s, those are military issue. So you have some idea fairly immediately where the source is. But if we are going to make a dent in getting illegal guns off our streets, SAPS have to have a comprehensive track and trace operation once the gun is recovered, in order to understand the source and the supply line. And once you understand that, then you can cut off the supply line, or at least reduce the supply. So one has to, and SAPs have to understand, where is this gun coming from? And once you get that and you understand that, the type of gun, how is it leaking into the criminal market, you can then begin to develop strategies to intervene and to at least control more effectively and reduce your supply.
Yes, I mean, many, no doubt, I mean, can be accounted for, in the sense that, I mean, those, whether it's security guards or police or whoever, when guns get stolen or snatched from them, then they get to report those. But there is a worrying trend as well, because I was looking at a report by a Ground Up where Jenny Irish Koboshian said that the National Defence Force, South African National Defence Force, and other state entities tend not to report firearm losses and thefts to the Central Firearms Registry. Now, that should worry us, because then it means that we have no complete picture, you know, of how many stolen guns and ammunition are actually out there, and criminals who may have access to them.
Will, you're raising a really central point, and this is something that SAPs can actually do. Right now, we have a dysfunctional record-keeping system. Our state does not know how many legal guns there are in this country. And if you don't know that, you have got no way of at least estimating the number of weapons that are then moving from your legal stocks into the criminal market. One way, and we know this is some of the work that the Global Initiative on Transnational Organized Crime has done, is we have over 2 million firearms that are registered to official institutions. So this includes your government departments. And there is no record keeping of the number of guns, the type of guns, and then the loss and the theft. So one of the things SAPs could do straight away, doesn't have to wait for policy or change in the legislation, is to audit all government institutions, to request in their KPIs that annually they report on number of guns, loss and theft. This is something that can happen straight away. So that would be within kind of official government institutions. But the same needs to happen within SAPs. You know, what are the guns that are being issued to cops? How often are cops losing their guns? And is there any consequence management if a police officer loses his or her police issue firearm? So they're really concrete actions that SAPs can put into place straight away. And something similar, for example, if you're looking at the civilian market, we would suggest, you know, honing in on those areas that are most vulnerable and most at risk for fraud and corruption, and that's your dealers and your private security industry. An audit needs to be done on those legal gun holdings as well.
Well, we've also had, I mean, cases of police who sell firearms to criminals, or in other instances, they get blackmailed by criminals, and to silence them or shut them up, then there's a deal in terms of which they then get to give criminals, you know, guns that perhaps there are no records of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a reminder of how prized guns are. They're prized possessions. They are a tool of the trade for criminals. And so there are many opportunities and many instances where where the gun is part of your work, whether you're a security officer or a police officer or in the military, that you're vulnerable to being targeted for your gun. Either directly, we know guns get taken directly off police officers. And it's important that SAPs takes this seriously, because their own members are at risk for gun-related violence. we know that from SAP stats that more police officers are killed off duty than on duty, and often their firearm is taken off them. So there are many opportunities here or many loopholes, weaknesses in the system for criminals to access guns through a range of means, and that they then become crime guns and enter the criminal market.
Now, your organization, or the organization that you founded, Gun Free South Africa, as the name suggests, advocates for a gun-free society. And I have many of my friends that say that's unrealistic given the high levels of crime. They'd rather die fighting for themselves and their families than actually, or if anything, they are more keen, those who never did before, actually keen to both be trained and, of course, to acquire guns because that's the only way to protect themselves, because they simply have no faith in the police's ability to do so.
And that's a really worrying picture that you paint. And we know that easy supply is complemented as well by high demand. So in a country like South Africa, where there are high levels of gun violence, there is also then high demand, often precisely because people feel that the police cannot adequately protect them, this notion that you're the first responder, and that's understandable. But Gun Free South Africa looks at what does the data tell us? What does the evidence show us about what works? And we know that there's no evidence that having a gun for self-protection is an effective way of protecting yourself, your loved ones, your possessions. That's one of the sources of illegal guns. 24 guns are lost and stolen from the civilian market and SAPs every single day. So guns are not effective. They're not the solution. And secondly, we know through our own experience and globally that when you reduce gun availability, you reduce gun deaths. It's really as simple as that. And we've done that in this country over the first 10 years. We were very successful through a very comprehensive police managed process of strong gun laws, of effective intelligence-driven policing. We were able to significantly reduce our gun deaths again. I think we're back to where we were in '98 with 33 gun deaths a day. And this is why it's urgent that the whole of government sees reducing gun violence as a priority. And that includes then communities. We all have to mobilize and act against these high levels of gun violence.
Well, Adele, we have to stop this conversation right here. And guess what? Go to the Eastern Cape to talk about that mass shooting last week in which 5 family members died. The accused there, or the suspects there, were making their first court appearance. In a moment,